You probably regard yourself as a genuinely nice person. You are likely the friend who always listens, the employee who never says no, and the partner who goes with the flow. You pride yourself on being easygoing and low maintenance. You believe that if you suppress your own needs to make others comfortable, you will be rewarded with love, appreciation, and peace. But if you are honest with yourself, you might notice that your inner world does not feel very peaceful. Beneath the smiling surface, there is often a simmering sense of exhaustion. You might find yourself keeping a mental scorecard of everything you have sacrificed for others. You remember every time you swallowed your opinion, every time you agreed to plans you hated, and every time you put someone else first. When the people around you do not reciprocate with the same level of self-sacrifice, you do not just feel disappointed, you feel betrayed. You feel a flash of white-hot anger that you quickly push down because nice people are not supposed to be angry. Eventually, this pressure cooker explodes. It might come out as a sudden emotional outburst, a passive-aggressive comment, or a complete shutdown where you cut people off. You are left wondering why your kindness feels so heavy. You are left wondering why being so good to everyone makes you feel so bad. The answer lies in a misunderstanding of what kindness actually is. What you are doing is not always kindness. It is often a defense mechanism called people-pleasing, and it comes with a hidden cost that destroys the very relationships you are trying to save. To understand why this happens, we must look at the psychological roots of chronic niceness. For many, this is not a personality trait but a survival strategy. In psychology, this is often referred to as fawning. Fawning is a response to conflict or threat where you try to appease the other person to stay safe. If you grew up in an environment where having needs was inconvenient or where conflict was dangerous, you learned a simple lesson. You learned that to be loved, you had to be useful. You learned that to be safe, you had to be invisible. You trained yourself to scan the room, read the emotional temperature, and adjust your behavior to keep everyone else calm. This behavior persists into adulthood, but now it is no longer keeping you safe. It is keeping you stuck. The core problem with chronic people-pleasing is that it relies on what psychologist Dr. Robert Glover calls covert contracts. A covert contract is a silent, unwritten agreement that you make with others in your head without ever telling them. The contract usually looks like this: I will do everything you want, I will hide my needs, and I will be perfect for you. In return, you will guess what I need, you will never get angry at me, and you will love me exactly how I want to be loved. The problem with covert contracts is that the other person does not know they have signed them. You are operating on a transactional system that only you can see. You give to get. You offer support not just because you care, but because you are buying insurance against rejection. When the other person inevitably fails to fulfill their side of this secret deal because they cannot read your mind, you feel ripped off. You feel like a victim. You think, after everything I did for them, how could they be so selfish? But they were not necessarily being selfish. They were simply existing in a relationship where you never told them what you needed. Let us look at how this plays out in everyday patterns. You might notice this dynamic when you agree to social plans. A friend asks you to dinner on a night when you are exhausted and just want to sleep. A person with healthy boundaries would check in with themselves and say, I'd love to see you, but I need to rest tonight. The people pleaser says, sure, that sounds great. You say yes to avoid the momentary discomfort of letting them down, but then you dread the event all week. You show up tired and resentful. You are physically present, but emotionally checked out. You might be irritable or snappy. In your attempt to be nice, you have actually been dishonest. You denied your friend the chance to connect with the real you, and you brought a fake, resentful version of yourself to the table instead. Another common pattern is the reflexive apology. You might find yourself saying, sorry, when someone else bumps into you in the hallway. You apologize for taking too long to reply to a text, for asking a question in a meeting, or for simply existing in a shared space. This constant apologizing signals to your nervous system that you are in the wrong just for taking up space. It reinforces a hierarchy where everyone else is more important than you. It is a subtle way of making yourself small so that no one can target you. But over time, this erodes your self-respect. It teaches people that your time, your space, and your voice are less valuable than theirs. You may also experience bitterness when your overgiving is not reciprocated. You might go above and beyond for a colleague, staying late to help them finish a project, assuming they will do the same for you next week. When next week comes and they leave on time while you are swamped, you feel furious. You label them as lazy or ungrateful. But did you ask for help? Did you make a clear request? Or did you assume that because you sacrificed yourself, they should too? The people pleaser often projects their own lack of boundaries onto others. You resent people who have boundaries because they remind you of the permission you have not given yourself. You view their healthy no as a personal attack because your yes is always a submission. The difference between authentic kindness and people-pleasing lies in the motivation. Authentic kindness is generous. It comes from a place of overflow. You give because you want to, and you are okay if you get nothing back. People-pleasing is fearful. It comes from a place of deficit. You give because you are afraid of what will happen if you don't. Authentic kindness builds connection. People-pleasing builds resentment. If your nice behavior leaves you feeling drained, angry, or invisible, it is not kindness. It is manipulation disguised as virtue. You are trying to control how others see you and how they treat you by suppressing your true self. Breaking this cycle requires a shift in how you view negative emotions, specifically anger. For the nice person, anger is often viewed as a failure. You think that if you are angry, you are bad. But anger is actually a vital data point. It is a signal from your psyche. We can use a tool called the resentment radar. Whenever you feel that familiar pang of resentment, that feeling of being taken for granted or used, stop and pay attention. Do not judge the feeling. Instead, treat it as a red flag on your dashboard. Resentment almost always means one of two things. Either you have said yes when you meant no, or you have done something for someone else expecting a return that you did not ask for. When your resentment radar pings, ask yourself, where did I abandon myself just now? Did you agree to a favor you don't have time for? Did you laugh at a joke that you found offensive? Did you let someone speak to you in a tone you dislike? The anger is telling you where your boundary lies. It is not a sign that you are a bad person. It is a sign that you are a person with limits, and those limits have been crossed. Another practical tool for breaking the habit of immediate agreement is a simple script. People pleasers often have a reflex to say yes before they have even processed the request. The anxiety of the pause feels too dangerous, so you fill it with compliance. To counter this, you need to buy yourself time. You can use the phrase, "I need to check my calendar." When someone asks for a favor, an invite, or a commitment, make this your default response. "Let me check my calendar and get back to you." This simple phrase does three powerful things. First, it breaks the automatic yes reflex. Second, it removes the immediate pressure of the interaction. You are not saying no, you are simply delaying the answer. Third, and most importantly, it gives you space to check in with your reality. Once you are alone, you can ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Do I have the energy? If the answer is no, you can then send a polite text declining. It is much easier to say no via text or email than it is to say it to someone's face when your nervous system is spiked. You might worry that if you start setting boundaries, people will leave you. This is a valid fear, but it is also a revealing one. If someone only likes you when you are compliant, they do not like you. They like the service you provide. They like your utility. When you stop being a doormat, you will inevitably upset people who were used to wiping their feet on you. This is not a tragedy, it is a filtration process. You are finding out who values you for who you are versus who values you for what you do for them. It is a common myth that having needs makes you selfish. We are conditioned to believe that the ideal human is selfless, needing nothing and giving everything. But a relationship between a person with no needs and a person with needs is not a relationship. It is a caretaking dynamic. It is a parent and a child. For a relationship to be adult and intimate, two whole people must show up. Two people with preferences, limits, desires, and deal breakers. When you hide your needs to be low maintenance, you are essentially hiding your humanity. You are robbing the other person of the opportunity to know you and to love you for who you actually are. Imagine a scenario where you are frustrated with your partner for not helping with housework. The nice version of you says nothing, does the dishes loudly, and sighs, hoping they get the hint. The partner hears the sigh but ignores it, and you go to bed fuming. This is the path of the covert contract. Now imagine the alternative. You feel the frustration. You pause. You say, "I am feeling overwhelmed with the housework. I need us to make a schedule for the dishes." This is direct. It is vulnerable. It might cause a momentary conflict or a negotiation, but it is real. It treats the partner as an equal who can handle your needs, rather than a mind reader who failed a test they didn't know they were taking. There is a profound liberation in realizing that you do not have to buy love with obedience. You are allowed to be inconvenient. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to disappoint people. In fact, your capacity to say no is what gives your yes its value. If you cannot say no, your yes is meaningless. It is just a default setting. When you start setting boundaries, you might feel guilty. That guilt is just your conditioning trying to pull you back into the safety of fawning. It is growing pains. As you practice this, you will notice a shift. You will have more energy because you are not leaking it into things you hate doing. Your relationships will become less transactional and more honest. The people who remain in your life will be the ones who respect your limits. You will stop feeling like a victim of your own life and start feeling like the driver. So take a moment to reflect on your interactions this week. Where are you holding on to a silent expectation? Who are you waiting on to read your mind? The next time you feel the urge to be the nice person, ask yourself, am I being kind or am I just being quiet? Real intimacy requires you to be visible, and being visible means showing up with your boundaries intact. You do not need to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are allowed to just be there, without the sacrifice.